Hello, everyone, and welcome to Popcast on the Rocks, episode 56. It's another Wednesday. We are back. My name is John. I'm joined by Andrea, and we're going to talk about pop culture things that we like after
Mhm.
we update you on our amazing weeks, I'm sure. So, how
I-
you doing tonight?
I'm good. I'm good. Although amazing week might be a tall order to live up to. I think I think my week could be more characterized as like average, so. But
Okay.
but if you've had an amazing week, you should definitely tell us about
Okay. I mean,
it.
every week's an amazing week I'm alive, right?
All right. Oh, I like that. I like that. It's
Yeah.
very philosophical of you, which I think is very appropriate given these couple of episodes of Falcon and Winter Soldier that we're going to talk about. I felt like they were very philosophical as well.
Okay. Well, I'm pumped to hear your take, and I'm sure
Yes.
everyone else's as well. What did you do in your mediocre average week?
Not a whole lot, which is probably why it's more average than normal. Just I mean, I guess the amazing characteristic of my week could be that I kept another human alive for
Once
another
again,
week. So
nice.
woo.
Keep that streak
Um,
going.
that's right. That's right. Hopefully continues for quite a while here.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, other than that, I mean, I got outside a couple of times before and around the snowfall that we've had. I went outside and walked 5 miles today, so I guess that's a pretty amazing
I
accomplishment.
saw that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Great.
I mean, I'm only 5 weeks post giving birth to our daughter, so I think actually that's pretty good considering the recovery rate from labor. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, other than that, just hung around the house a little bit, did some baking, did some cooking, watched some more Real Housewives of New York, and
Okay.
you know,
Great.
got my fill of trashy TV that way. When my daughter would let me take a break, and then got my fill of non-trashy TV in watching Falcon and Winter Soldier episodes that we're covering.
Nice.
So,
Fitness trainer Mike is in the chat. Thanks for jumping
hey,
in. Glad for you to join us. Uh,
absolutely.
well, yeah, that sounds all right. Like you said, big milestones. Kids alive, long walks.
Yep, that's
Nice.
right. That's my world right now.
Nice.
How about yourself? What have you
Um,
been up to? Tell me
yeah,
something exciting.
well, I mean, as we talked before, we kind of spread out the birthday things or whatever, I guess. Just
Oh,
why not
so
continue
you got
the
a you,
linger with the stuff? Yeah.
you got a few more
Um,
birthday things to show us?
yeah, and well, no, not really. I don't, but um, I did have some family over,
Okay.
and it happened to be on the day that one of my favorite musical groups was performing live online, London Grammar, and
Okay.
so um, yeah, we had cake and good food and whatever, and listened to the live performance. So that was
Excellent.
fun. Very happy. Their new album is California Soil,
Hmm.
and I enjoy it. It's very good. I'm happy.
Excellent.
Um, Mike is giving you a congratulations on the youngling, the newborn.
Thank you. The youngling.
Yeah,
Sounds like a Jedi in training, which
I
would be
mean, one
amazing.
hopes. Yeah, right.
Yeah. Yeah, that'd be pretty badass.
So less
So,
dogmatic.
yeah.
The yeah, awesome. I played some more video games. Got onto Luke's stream some. I've been kind of jumping all over the place in video games. A little more Animal Crossing here and there. I play a little
Good.
bit of Outriders on Game Pass. Play a little bit of Days Gone. Um, I listened to like kept up on the news about Days Gone and controversy surrounding that. I've been
What's that
getting
all
going
about?
with well, um, it's just some of the stuff. Some of the creators have been out and giving interviews and talking about Days Gone, and Jason Schreier did games journalist, I guess. He did a piece that was kind of behind the scenes of Naughty Dog and Bend Studios, who makes Days Gone, and what a number of things came out of that, including which was that supposedly Bend Studios is not working on a Days Gone 2, that was not greenlit to do, which surprised a lot of people because Days Gone actually sold very well.
Right.
And so it kind of brought up this conversation of how much does Sony care about Metacritic scores?
Mm-hmm.
And it brought up more, like some of the one guy that was working on the project, he said how I don't remember their names, unfortunately. I already used their names, but that Sony cares a lot about the Metacritic score, and it's unfortunate because they don't think that there's a school of thought that thinks that the game didn't get enough PR, good press or whatever.
Sure.
And then when they released the embargo for review, it was pre like day one patch. Normally they would, often they will require you hey, here's a patch, please install this patch, make sure that that's done before you release your review, because that's the way games are. So a lot of people reviewed the game in a very buggy, terrible state.
Sure.
And it got quite a few negative reviews then, some mediocre reviews, whatever. But past all that stuff, it sold well, and it's the game one. Everybody likes doing sequels, right? So it's game one, and that's what takes the time to build your foundation for making sequels. Sequels are an easier thing to make because you've whatever engine you're in, you've worked on, you've created so many assets for it, you understand your gameplay, like
right.
So yeah, it was like a 10-year project for him. It took too long.
Oof.
It was like 10-year game or whatever. And yeah, there was turnaround at the studio and all kinds of stuff going on. So I followed all that. So, but we'll get to some more Sony stuff later, more Sony controversy, I guess. But in the state of be some good news instead. So yeah. I froze. Oh no! Okay, I'm back. On my screen, I froze.
That's all right.
Yeah, I've been reading some comics and getting going on work. So.
All right. Yeah, you've definitely had a grab bag of a week. Just kind of a little bit of everything everywhere, but sounds pretty good.
Yeah. Drinking something fun today?
I am. I am following April 19th. Also known as my mother's birthday. But also,
oh, happy birthday. Nice.
Yes. I'll pass it along to her. April 19th, other than being my mother's birthday, is also known as World Amaretto Day. So in honor of that, I am drinking something I used to drink in college, which is an Amaretto Sour. And
nice.
We've got it in, I'm trying to figure out which way I'm going. So we've got it in the Shakespeare glass.
Oh, cool.
Which is pretty awesome. I got that for Christmas from my father-in-law. But that's actually going to come up again later. Shakespeare is anyway, during one of our talks about Falcon and Winter Soldier. So I thought that was an appropriate glass to have today.
Cool. Nice.
So yeah. So that's what I'm drinking. How about yourself? I saw your rather impressive mug that you just lifted up a moment ago. What you got in there?
Yeah. This is my go-to favorite mug for sure. It's a leather mug I got Renfest.
I was gonna say very Renfest of you.
I'm drinking actually a Surly First Avenue Plus.
Oh, all right.
So, usually those like promotional Surly 93X or whatever aren't very great, but I'm enjoying this one. It's light and refreshing, which is what I was hoping it would be. So yeah, not many drink holidays right now.
Nope, nothing much going on in April, unfortunately, but making the best of it.
Yep, nice. Okay, so as we had mentioned or alluded to, we'll be getting to Falcon and Winter Soldier episodes 4 and 5 later in the episode.
Mhm.
Before that, we've got a little bit of news to cover that hopefully you find interesting. Got some video game stuff up front, and then we'll kind of morph and meld into Marvel stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So. Um, we kicked off, I think it was the week, I don't know what day it actually was, but the Resident Evil showcase. Clap, clap, applaud, yes.
That's right.
Did you get to catch the whole thing?
I did get to catch the whole thing. I'm so, so, so excited. I mean,
Nice.
obviously, you know me. Anybody who listens knows me in the sense of I love Resident Evil, especially 4. Um, and so I'm excited for Resident Evil 8 to come out as it's got very 4-esque vibes.
It does.
And yeah, it looks intense, scary. The gameplay looks amazing. And I'm excited to learn more about the story, as the trailer's given us some very intriguing glimpses into who our villains are and who our playable heroes are.
Yep.
Especially
Yeah.
with that closing on the trailer, the repetition of Ethan Winter's name was very
Mm.
obviously letting us know what we're in for, but also very ominous. And yeah, just leaves you ready to play and get into it, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely, I think that Capcom's doing, in my book anyway, such a good job of giving everybody that wants something specific from Resident Evil, giving them content that they would like,
Hmm.
because there are people that like yourself that love Resident Evil 4 and a little more action oriented kind of
Hmm.
Resident Evil game, and then there's those that really like the more um like methodical, slower paced kind of suspense driven kind of thing.
Hmm.
I mean, normally you'd ammo's scarcity in Resident Evil 4, you find ammo a lot. They drop ammo,
Yeah.
and stuff like that. It's different. So I think it's kind of cool, even with our main line going from 7 to 8. 7 was supposedly very terrifying, and now
Hmm.
8 might be. It's different thematically. We got seemingly,
Right.
I like that as well. Like this Ethan Winters trilogy has taken
Hmm.
us to different horrors than the rest of Resident Evil always has.
Hmm.
Than T virus or whatever,
Right.
and that stuff. So
Though
yeah.
I did find it interesting to note that in the showcase they were mentioning that this isn't going to directly tie to 7 in terms of
Mm,
story. So we don't, like, if anybody's like anticipating, oh man, I better go back and kind of like check out Res Evil 7's storyline. Apparently not needed. I mean,
sure.
other than, the very, very basics, but yeah, it's not going to be a continuation. So
Nice.
don't worry
I mean, I'm okay with that.
yeah. It's kind of nice to not worry about, trying to recall something, from
Hmm.
the previous game. So,
Well, and when they're making these games, like thematically so different, or your villain's so different, it's nice that you don't have just
mhm.
like unnecessary or really weak connections just to make it connect. You
Right.
know,
Yep.
just
Don't try to force it.
yeah. So, but yeah, they announced a complicated layout of time zones and demo
Yes.
availability slots and all that stuff. The
Mhm.
first demo has already come and gone.
Mhm.
They have a deal with PlayStation to get stuff early. So the next demo is going to be on the 24th
Mhm.
on PlayStation and May 1st on Xbox. That's um, is there a time slot for this one as well? There definitely was on the last one. There's an eight
There
hour window.
there is, yes. So
Okay.
the April 24th PlayStation demo is, I believe, the castle demo. I think they've already
Hmm.
released the Village demo. And yes, there are specific time slots. So you can go on their website and check out, your time zone and when your time slot starts and ends. Um, and both on April 24th for just the Castle demo and on May 1st for Xbox, which I believe is both demos.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, go on their website and check out what your time zone is and what your time slot
Yeah.
is.
So they give us a new trailer.
Mhm.
Um, I saw some people later playing the demo, so
Yep.
I didn't watch too much of it, but there was plenty of like I really don't want to play the demo actually. I don't want
Yeah,
to
I don't want it to be
just gonna
spoiled.
start. Yeah. They're doing a time trials mode called
Mhm.
Mercenaries that comes with
Yep.
it. That looks like it could be fun.
Mhm.
Um, and then further, like they acknowledged that Resident Evil has been around for 25 years, and so they
Mhm.
had some game industry people on to say like, congratulations that you're still
Yes.
going strong.
Yes.
And notably, again, the PlayStation connection is strong here because not only are they getting the demos early, but then most of the guests they had to acknowledge were also from Sony or
Right.
previously from Sony. So,
Right.
which honestly, in my mind, like when I think Resident Evil, I think PlayStation. You probably
Oh,
think GameCube,
I do, yeah.
but that's the outlier.
Yeah.
Um, I sometimes think Dreamcast too, but again, it kind of PlayStation is where it began,
Yeah.
and I think every Resident Evil game has been on PlayStation, even
Yes.
though Resident Evil 4 was
Originated
a
on
GameCube
GameCube.
thing for a
Yep.
while. Yeah.
Mhm.
There's offshoots there. I'm sure don't at me. I'm sure there's some offshoot that's not on PlayStation, but you know, yeah. Infinite Darkness, they released a trailer for that. That's a Netflix anime movie, quote unquote, I guess.
Mhm.
What'd you think of that?
I'm pretty excited about it. I don't know why this totally went over my head, but I hadn't realized it was going to be animated. So I definitely was like taken aback for a moment.
Mm,
I thought it was going to be live action. But
well,
I'm cool with it being animated. I just, took my brain a minute to adjust my expectations and my reality to what they were showing me.
and I mean, that's probably because they are making a new live action one. So then they were like,
Right.
oh, movie. It's like, oh yeah, but yeah, different one. You got projects coming out of their ears. So
Yes, yes. But this looks pretty good. I'm excited about it. Netflix has really, I think, done some cool things, um, in promoting a lot of their recent animated series that have been adapted either from other series or video games. So I'm excited. I think Netflix is still a powerhouse when it comes to adapting content, for their own like quote unquote original shows. So yeah, I'm pumped.
absolutely. Well, let's use this next thing to like transition into another event that happened then. So they did
Yeah.
show briefly the Resident Evil 4 in VR for Oculus.
Yes.
That was announced. And
Yes.
we had today the Oculus Gaming Showcase,
Which
which
went a little
again,
deeper. Yeah, into the
I
VR for
didn't
Resident
get
Evil
to see
4.
what they. Okay, what do you think?
It looks fantastic. It really shows that they've put a lot of work into remastering the game so that your point of view now lines up from your point of view rather than from Leon Kennedy's, you know, as
Mhm.
a character on the screen. I think they've done a really great job updating the graphics and updating the game without taking away from that feeling of the quality of the game in its original form. You know what I mean?
Yep.
They've done a good job remastering without going too far, where it looks too new, where your brain just kind of goes like, no, I didn't want you to actually do that, and I didn't need the detail, kind of some of the fun is in watching, the presentation of an older game and looking at like the graphics for the time period. And I
Hmm.
think they've done a great job of staying faithful to that while also, like I said, cleaning up a few things and then um, remastering the point of view that you can look at while you're playing the game.
Nice. So you're gonna buy an Oculus Quest 2 now?
Oh my god, I'm so tempted. Don't start my online shopping addiction while I'm on maternity leave, John. Chris will come home and every day I'm gonna have something new. He's gonna be like, "Oh man, we can't leave you alone."
Yeah.
But yeah,
Surprise.
if
Well, you just pepper in some things that he's really interested in as well.
I was gonna say, I
Yeah.
mean, I think he might forgive me for this purchase since he also, loves Res Evil 4 as much as I do, and that's, one of the earliest things we did together when we were dating was play the game together. So this might,
Yeah.
he might let this one slide.
Yeah. It was just it's really for you, honey. It's
That's right.
for
It's
to
for
honor our
us.
relationship. Yeah.
It's for us.
Um well, I mean, it'd be a good thing to try and see if
Mhm.
you like I suppose it won't let you return the game, but you could return the headset
Right.
and you could see if you have the motion legs for it, you know?
Yes. Yes.
See if that's something you can adapt to even, see if that's you enjoy it as much as you think you might.
Right. Yeah. If I was ever going to try virtual reality, I mean, this would be the game to get me there. So
Hmm.
we'll see.
And I still think they're so good for exercise.
Yes.
Like when I exercise with Beat Saber, the the calories are off the charts compared to anything else. Like
Sure.
weightlifting will get me stronger, but I want to burn calories. I'll play Beat Saber.
All right.
So, and there's boxing games and that kind of thing. So,
Yeah. Yeah. I
yeah,
remember that was a huge part of why we were so excited to get a Wii to do all like the Wii sports, when I mean, it's not that quite the same as virtual reality, but you're still like,
yeah,
going through the motions, just holding a
yep,
controller instead. So this could be
yep.
an even more fun way to do that.
Boxing was a workout. It was
Yes.
short spurts, but yeah, we boxing. Yeah,
Yep.
sure. I just kind of looked at a little bit of a sort of summary. I didn't get to watch it was kind of happening like right before our podcast almost.
Yeah.
Um, but do you see anything that was interesting to you else from that?
Not especially. I mean, they had the new Star Wars, um, or not the newest Star Wars, but the Star Wars Galaxy's Edge game that, kind of caught my interest a little bit, but there was far less about that than there was about Resident Evil 4. I think the Star Wars clip was just maybe a minute or two long, so I didn't really get a good sense of gameplay. I just got a sense of, some of the characters that they were introducing, um, some of the settings that they were going to be in, not necessarily what the game was going to be. So,
Sure. I looked at, like I say, just kind of an overview, and I thought
yeah.
Lone Echo looked pretty nice
Mm-hmm.
too.
Sure.
There's some game that is kind of a spiritual in the same category as 1080 snowboarding from the Nintendo 64.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
a snowboarding game.
Yeah, I saw that. I was starting
That
to
looked
to tune out a little bit by then.
okay. Yeah. Um, yeah. I mean, the tough thing people always say about VR is that usually it doesn't present all that well.
Yeah.
Like you need, it's just you have to experience it. You know.
Right. Well, it, it almost just looks like you're watching a movie on a screen or something because you're not in it. It doesn't feel
Yeah.
3D in the sense like where you put on the headset and it feels that you're in it. This you're just sort of like I said, like watching a movie. Like when you were watching the snowboarding game demo, it's just like slopes of snow. So it doesn't translate to all that exciting. You know what I mean? On a flat
Yep.
screen just presented playing before you.
No, absolutely. I mean, they had Yeah, Alan found it, I think. Carve
Oh,
snowboarding.
yeah, sure.
80 people, yeah. It's like Half-Life Alyx was very well reviewed, won some awards. If you watch that gameplay, you think, oh, that could be cool to do. But if you watch that versus side by side with Doom, another first person shooter, they're very different. And Doom is incredibly exciting. Like
Yeah.
it's crazy stuff happening all over the place. It's nuts. Well, you can feel things feel a lot more intense and a lot more frenetic and everything when you're in VR. Like you couldn't keep pace with Doom. You'd just be completely sick or whatever. Like it's just the game is designed differently. And even Half-Life Alyx, they talk about length. They said usually people like to pick up things and poke around and like explore their environment a little more, whereas sometimes you just beeline in regular, two-dimensional game.
Sure.
So, the game is kind of short if you just like rush through it, but people usually don't. So they're definitely different ways to design, and yeah, hard to sell.
Yeah.
So get one of those headsets, Andrea, strap it on and try it. 14-day return policy, you're fine.
Yeah, that could be one of our side videos for our podcast is watch Andrea make a fool of herself in VR headset gear.
and then rip it off as she throws up.
Just kill the zombie.
Let's see. So last bit of gaming news. Like I say, there was quite a bit this week. I could have talked about the whole like controversy or whatever and stuff with things going on with Sony. This is one thing that's a bright spot though with Sony. They were going to close down the PS3, Vita, and PSP online stores. And people freaked out because they're already like patches were disappearing and all stuff. Game developers had like literally just bought new Vita dev kits, and then a month later they're like, you're not going to be able to publish your game because we're shutting it down. That kind of thing. Well, they've reversed course. They heard the outcry, I guess, and the PS3 and the Vita stores are staying open.
Yes. Which is excellent news and testament to the power of the people in making your voice heard.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting. It's really interesting because these stores are older, so maybe not the Vita so much, but the PS3 and the PSP one is still closing. So it's not really so much of a surprise, but everybody seems to agree that it was handled poorly, that it needed to be much further notice given. Don't make developers assume they can release a game within the year and then they can't.
Right.
That kind of thing. So yeah, it's a bit of good news. And I've been really, in the last couple weeks, really down on Sony, and I've seen a lot of the tide shift in terms of the narrative going around the breakdown between PlayStation and Xbox and stuff. But to me, this really gave me hope that even though like Jim Ryan maybe has never played a video game in his life, like clearly he's aware that they can't have these like they can't have their fans all turn on them at once,
Yes.
And then, the media that's been on their side a long time has really started to shift and turn as well. And so you're going to start getting to be a bad look. And I think this shows that they are listening and they are aware. And to me, that gives me hope for them to ultimately do what's right by the majority of their players. Because I really want them to stick around, Microsoft is a juggernaut and could just like buy up the gaming world, just like eat them all if they want to be bought. And Sony can't do that. So I really want to see them and Nintendo stick around and be in this space and make awesome stuff. So,
Yeah, I agree. It's always scary to think that, any industry can be dominated by just like a monolith of a company. Um,
mhm.
not only because, it forces you to um, you know, s- support that company through your dollars or not. When you don't get any choices, that's not very fun to like, if you don't support that company, or if you don't agree with what that company is doing, it's not a very fun thing to like have to make that decision. But also because I think it kills creativity. If one company, even though you have like one company being the umbrella for a lot of different like mini companies or mini, studios or things like that, I think it still kind of kills the creativity to, think like, oh, now we're exclusively designing a game, not only for this audience, but also for this executive who has to give it the go ahead. And, when you know somebody and you know what they'll say yes and no to, that really just kind of like narrows your options. So,
Mhm.
yeah.
Well, it's kind of they've been running up against it because partially because of this article and stuff has contributed to the doomsday kind of talk, but
Hmm.
PlayStation had such a seemingly winning strategy with the PS4. Like they had, when you look back at the PlayStation, like I would not hesitate to recommend someone go out and buy a PS4 Pro
Hmm.
and subscribe to like PlayStation Now or whatever. And I mean, the number of great games that they have exclusive to the platform is pretty nuts. And so I thought they would be continuing basically with this strategy, but what it seems like is they're really moving into we want to do this like empire of things like Marvel.
Hmm.
Some people have compared it that way because they're doing Last of Us HBO show
Hmm.
and they're doing an Uncharted movie and I think they're going to do a Ghost of Tsushima movie,
Yep.
and so they're all in the movie space and trying to like make their games align with this and like create whatever sort of synergy. And there's talk that they're going to do Naughty Dog is working on a Last of Us 1 remake, which is insane because that game
Wow.
is not old.
Yeah.
So they're thinking like, oh,
Oh
some
God.
people think they'll, I don't know, they'll replace the
It's
faces with the actors or something,
oh God, it's
in
Spider-Man
the movie.
syndrome. It's
Yeah.
way too
Well,
soon.
yeah. It seems like they're putting all their money into a couple things that are in their mind too big to fail, that they know will be
Sure.
critical successes, that they know are recognizable. And it just, yeah, like you said, the creativity. It seems like
Hmm.
um, the smaller guys and the weirder games and stuff are being forgotten about. And maybe this isn't true. Maybe like they are still working on a lot of smaller, weirder things, but it doesn't seem that way, and it has people
Sure.
worried that Sony's going to become just the Last of Us and Spider-Man company.
Hmm.
So I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah,
We'll
it's a
see.
real fear. I mean, you know, it's so much depends on like commercial success these days, but also what studio heads or executives deem successes,
Hmm.
like you were talking about before. um where they're concerned with a specific metric like a Metacritic score, and if you're
Yeah.
not delivering on that, then you're failing. And
Yep.
it just kills creativity that way, because you can't just measure success by one metric. So
Yep.
that's tough.
Yep. Absolutely. They say that every generation for PlayStation has been like make or break for Sony. Like it's been a while where they if the PlayStation 3 had really failed, PlayStation would be done.
Hmm.
Like it's not like you get a generation pass.
Right.
They don't have the cash to do that. So
Right.
they really have to succeed every generation. It makes me root for them. It makes me want them to do well because
Hmm.
I mean, I wish it seems silly. I wish they could get ahead more so it didn't feel so urgent
Yeah, like make or
necessarily.
break every time. Like
Yeah.
you're living on the razor's edge.
Yeah. Right. So don't know. But I honestly envision us within 20 years, Sony being like Sega in a way. They get out of the console hardware space, and they're focusing on their like once a year AAA amazing games, and they're available everywhere.
Okay.
And they'll be renowned like a director would be,
Sure.
like a Martin Scorsese. Oh, it's every movie, And so Sony Game Studio is like doing that. And yeah, I don't know.
Okay.
Let's see.
Write it down now, folks. John's predictions. We're gonna check back.
Yeah. You'll all forget. Yeah, unless you put
now
that
I'll never
on your
forget.
fridge and you leave it and you check. Yeah.
Challenge accepted. I'll never forget.
Okay. All right. So be it. So I just saw that Shadow and Bone. You heard about this?
Yes.
Oh, is a show releasing on Netflix on April 23rd. I thought the trailer made it look interesting anyways. Cool. But it just reminded me that I'm still getting lost in the sea of content. Because now there's a movie on Netflix called Stowaway coming out. Now that's a movie, not a show, but that looks really cool too. And I don't know. I don't know if I'm gonna end up watching either of these things.
Well, I am definitely intrigued by Shadow and Bone. I haven't read the book series, but I just ordered the first one, and I'm interested because I just read a couple of the spoiler-free reviews, but they all seem to agree that the Netflix show is the rare media that improves on the book series, and I am always intrigued when people think that, because I am definitely one of those people who is of the mindset that the book series is the best.
Sure.
But I do think that there are very few things that do improve on the book series, and to see a lot of people agree that this does makes me very interested to watch it. So I'll probably be checking that out.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, let me know how it is. Maybe I'll get to it as well. I need to watch.
Yeah.
One Punch Man yet still too.
Yes, get it.
Because it just maybe I'm really having trouble adapting to the new way that we get movies and such.
Okay.
Because I wanted to like bring up the good thing about Marvel things, as I still feel like Marvel movies are the one thing, or TV shows, that's kind of an eventized thing that enough people might see that you could actually talk about it. Because otherwise there's so many services with so many things and movies coming out. The Courier, Benedict Cumberbatch, that's a movie coming out, but unless there's something particular that really is like, I must see this, you probably end up passing it by, and so does everyone else. And even if you do watch it, the chances are that anyone else has seen it as well is slim to none. So I feel like we're going to get to this point where so much stuff is going to get drowned out, and we're going to get the eventized things that someone like Marvel can bring us, that enough people have name recognition with, and at least have seen some of it, or know it's happening, or have heard of it. They have some context for it.
Yeah. It's always, streaming platforms I think are always going to be competing to see who has the next Game of Thrones and the next, cross-platform recognizable show that people are like, oh, I have to see it, so I'm going to buy, HBO, or I'm going to buy Hulu, or I'm going to buy whatever. So yeah, I mean, it's a constant competition to see who's got the next thing.
Yep, for sure.
And yeah, you're right. I mean, Marvel right now is probably dominant in that arena, but I mean, a lot of streaming platforms have things coming out soon that they're hoping they're going to be, claiming the title. Like Amazon's got the new Lord of the Rings. They've got the Wheel of Time. They're hoping one or both of those is going to be the next Game of Thrones. So we'll see if they can sort of like wrest some of the attention away from Disney.
Yeah. Which reminds me very quickly,
Hmm.
Amazon canceled their Lord of the Rings game.
Shut up.
Amazon games they've been trying to get in the gaming space and failing miserably. So
No.
I've been laughing internally because Google and Amazon have been doing one like balls of a job getting in
Yes.
the gaming space,
Yeah,
these
for God's
multi-billion-dollar
sakes.
companies. And so yeah, they announced that they're done. They're not doing that. I figured for sure that'd be like you say, the Lord of the Rings television show
Yeah,
and
and
the
then the
game coming around at
game.
the same time. Yeah.
Oh
Hmm.
God. Can they just like stop tripping over their own feet and get out of their own way and just do
I mean,
something already?
I hope not. I honestly like when I just talked about
It's
competition
comedy.
I don't want Amazon and Google in the gaming space. Get
Oh
out.
God.
Leave.
It's seriously, it's a comedy of errors.
Yeah.
They can't get over themselves. They can't get out of their own way to get into this, gaming industry. Even like though, like you said, they've got such resources. It's just
Yeah.
insane.
Yep. I think it's it's a hubris about people that, they're like, well, we can just do this too, and they don't know anything about it.
Hmm.
And then they hire people that do know something about it, and then they probably don't listen to those people.
Exactly.
So, all right, done.
Oh, amusing. Well, at least I've still got the TV show to look forward to, I guess.
Yep. Yep. Anyways, we're rolling into Marvel things, and I saw
Yes.
that just I think yesterday, they
Hmm.
revealed the new trailer for Shang Chi, um, which I thought looked pretty cool. I mean, it
Yeah.
was a well done trailer.
Hmm.
How about you?
Yeah, I enjoyed the trailer a lot. I've not ever been introduced to the comics for Shang-Chi, so I'm catching up. I tried to do some quick background reading before the show just to like get a sense of, where this is in the Marvel universe. Yeah, the trailer I thought looked great as far as giving hints towards a storyline, a bit all over the place, a bit
Yeah.
disjointed in terms of, if you're someone like myself who hasn't been introduced to the storyline before, you were sort of playing catch up and you weren't quite sure what was happening a little bit. Um but not enough to like deter me from, watching the movie or something like that. Just maybe like a bit scattered in its focus.
This is the kind of trailer I like in a way. I mean, I
Mhm.
certainly am okay with a very focused trailer, but I
Mhm.
like that I don't know what's happening story wise
Sure.
because I just don't want to know. I want to be surprised. So like
Sure.
usually the teaser trailer like this, that's all I want to see. I don't want to see
Sure.
anything else. Some with the teaser trailer, and then that's it. Because then the next trailer, the long one that breaks down what I'm supposed to expect from a story.
Mhm.
Well, now I don't know. I mean, it might convince you more or not, but you're taking away some of the fun of the surprise.
Sure. Yeah, I can understand that. I'm just usually someone if I don't know, the lore behind something, I don't necessarily want to be introduced to like the antagonist and I don't want to know what the problem is that we're going to overcome, but I do want to be introduced more um in a logical fashion to our protagonist.
Sure.
I still couldn't quite figure out like what was going on with Shang-Chi. I mean, you got these like great like sequences where we're clearly following his growth and development into the man he is today, but it still wasn't quite like I'm not quite sure where this is coming from.
Sure.
So but yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, I don't want things spoiled. I just want to like get
Yep.
into like what am I building from.
Mm. Once again, DC should take note. I mean, we don't know how this movie's going to turn out, but they're taking like unknown character essentially
Hmm.
and make giving him his own film,
Yep.
like with the money and the budget and everything. And
Yep.
um,
And they're gonna do it well.
I mean, they're at least gonna be high production value, if nothing else, and hopefully it's great. And they also have the opportunity then to they can be more, because Lord knows they like to do this, to be very free in their interpretation of the character. They'll
Yes.
embellish a lot, change things, a lot of things around, because there isn't the millions of people that are familiar with the content like the back of their hand.
Right.
And we don't have a history that we've been exposed to with the characters. So they will definitely feel more free in messing with stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And you'll make fewer people upset that way. And
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'll be more of an adaptation than, a needing to stay true to.
Yeah. Be less faithful, and sometimes the characters that are less known are in need of that, embellishment, like Guardians of the Galaxy or something like that. So,
yeah.
But I have some show and tell related to this.
Okay.
Because I, as a child, nor as an adult or anything like that, read any Shang Chi, but I was in Fort Myers, and there was this shop that they sell local art and different things or whatever there, some antiques and whatnot, and it would all go to like domestic violence programs and support and stuff in the community. And so I found there 3 comics that the comics are The Deadly Hands of Kung Fu, and they feature Iron Fist and Shang Chi.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, look at that.
Mm-hmm. So I have not yet read them, but there's 3, and they are actually in order.
Okay.
So
Sword Quest, that looks cool.
For the video viewers,
yes,
they get to see the covers.
Oh, there's Shang-Chi and the White Tiger. Interesting.
So yeah, I'm looking forward to reading them.
Yes.
And they were a little overpriced given their condition, but I felt terrible. So I went in there, the shop, and I found these comics, and then I'm like, I kind of looked them up and stuff, and I was like, I'm really interested in reading this Shang-Chi. I like Iron Fist already, and I'm interested in learning some more about Shang-Chi, and I know that he's dealt with Iron Fist and whatever. So I looked up the values, and one of them in particular was actually worth quite a bit, but in good condition, and these aren't in good condition. So I was like gonna go and bargain as you would on a used place or whatever. And I'm sure you see where this is going or whatever.
Yeah.
But firstly, the people that like owned the section or whatever weren't there, so they couldn't. But then I found out that everything was going to charity. And I was like, oh, I didn't know that when I came in here. So so then I bought them. So.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you can't be held accountable for that. I mean, if you didn't know, like, it's not like you were like, sorry, victims, like, know.
But
yeah.
So yeah,
that's cool though. You should read them and obviously give us your review here on the podcast for what you think.
Yep. My very uninformed normie view of of my first ever showing of Shang-Chi. So
yeah, it'll be fun. Well, and then it'll be fun to see, when this does come out, what your thoughts are on the character, if there's anything that, connects between those comics and the show.
Well, I would say hairstyle is different so far.
Well, yeah.
Different. Though his one jacket definitely is like a throwback to outfit from the comics, so that's cool from the trailer.
Awesome. I love details like that.
So Iron Fist versus Shang-Chi is this first one. Who's gonna win? I'm gonna place your bet.
Well, since we're talking about it, I'll take Shang-Chi.
Okay.
You take Iron Fist since you said you like him.
My bet would honestly be on a tie, because that's usually how
sure.
I mean, or something very clearly designed for a rematch, so then the other person can win, whatever. But yeah. All right. So Shang Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings coming
Mm-hmm.
soon. In the meantime, what is currently out in the Marvel Cinematic Universe is Falcon and Winter Soldier.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're about to get real spoilery with Falcon and Winter Soldier episodes 4 and 5.
Mm-hmm.
Um, episodes 4 and 5. What do you think? You want to take them in one by one? You want to kind of go in a lump? We've got a lot happened. I think these were
Yes.
definitely not
Big episodes.
setup episodes. Yeah, we're in the meat of it.
Right. Well, I mean, we should be considering that these
Yeah,
are 2 episodes right before the finale here. So we've got to get moving. Um, I want to take them one by one, but I also want to just quick like have an overview comment that kind of takes us back a little bit to last week when you were talking about the point of these Marvel TV shows and how they weren't really um, designed to be things that people needed to see in order to see like the big tentpole Marvel movies. They were just kind of like interesting little side stories and tidbits to move certain characters along or um expand on things that just happen in the movies, like for
sure.
instance Sam becoming Captain America. And
Mhm.
I came away from these 2 episodes thinking like, yes, I really feel that with this TV series right now. Um, whereas WandaVision gave me a little bit of hope of big things were happening and there could be some impact on the Marvel movies, like say if White Vision comes back in any of the movies and that storyline is played out anywhere.
Sure.
The conclusion of these 2 episodes, you know to almost nobody's surprise, is Sam finally picks up the Captain America shield and decides he's going to be Captain America. And the closing of that in episode 5 really gave me that feeling of that's what this show has been designed to do all along, is literally just show us Sam's journey into becoming Captain America, and then we're going to jump into a Marvel movie where he just is Captain America. And the average viewer is just going to see that natural leap from Endgame to whatever movie that Sam
Yep.
appears in. And this is just really like, oh, isn't this an interesting side note and how he got there?
Yep.
So I don't know. It like the episodes were great, and it really they really made me think. I think they're, like I said earlier in the show, they're both very philosophical and they got very deep, and it was very interesting to me. But at the same time, I was very aware that that nothing big was happening in the sense of this wasn't going to shake anything up in the Marvel universe at
Mhm.
large. That makes sense?
And yeah, and there's nothing like inherently bad about that
No.
because I mean, I remember as a kid reading in now it's all different now, but reading in the Star Wars like encyclopedia or one of the litany of Star Wars books I had that
Yeah.
was basically Obi-Wan Kenobi taught Anakin Skywalker the ways of the Force. He turned to the dark side. It became Darth Vader. They fought
Mhm.
over lava, and Obi-Wan defeated him and like pushed him in lava, and that's why he needs the suit, and that's how it
Right.
happened. Well, then we get to see how that came to pass, you
Mhm.
know, and so that's entertaining. And even though we like ultimately the same thing happens, and we knew the ending,
Right.
we still got to enjoy the ride and get
Yes.
the detail. So
Yeah,
you
not
have to
to
enjoy the ride, and it does have it is important to like hopefully, like you say with WandaVision, it leaves like you hope that things could be talked about later
Yeah.
in something else. It's leaving seeds for planting seeds for future things.
Yeah, I just felt that WandaVision maybe planted a few more seeds versus like this feels a little bit more closed to me.
Sure.
Not that, like I said, not to take away from the quality of the episodes, because I think like here we really got an excellent pair And I say pair only in the sense of, we watched both this week. For other viewers, they
Sure.
watched, one and one. But we really got a pair of great episodes here, but it feels a little more close-ended.
Mm-hmm.
So
I definitely thought that these episodes were strong for the series. I still find myself less interested. I got, and it's not really fair. Like I was a little leery in the first episode or two with WandaVision. So that's kind of the same thing here, I guess, but maybe it's the nature of the characters, whatever path they're taking. I'm less invested.
Sure.
But to think that these are definitely the best done episodes of the show so far.
Yes.
Okay, so episode specific, episode 4. What do we have going on in that one?
So,
and do you want to talk about the philosophical things in this episode, or how do you want to get to those?
Yeah, I do. I definitely I want to talk maybe a little plot first and then get a little philosophical. But so as far as episode 4 goes, it was full of a couple of fun twists and turns, and of course a few cameos that I really was enjoying. First and foremost, obviously, we've got Dora Milaje in this episode kicking serious ass, against super soldier serum or no serum. These girls have got it going on, and they were definitely a fun addition to, our crew here, both in terms of, giving Bucky a few ultimatums that, he ultimately has to follow through on concerning Zemo, and then also interacting and, setting up John Walker for a pretty important character shift later on in the episode. Because I think not only, are the events at the end of this episode key to shifting his character, but also this first battle here where he just gets his ass handed to him and he's like, God, they didn't even have super soldier serum and I couldn't do anything, are kind of important in setting up that eventual, like, further downfall of his character and his need to become somebody in this world, that he's not just like this symbolic Captain America figurehead. He really wants to, like, have the power and the ability that goes along with it, just like Steve Rogers.
Sure.
Although obviously it does not turn out as well for him, as we'll get to.
Right. Let's see. We get more, like, we start seeing this setup as Zemo and the two are, the group here are trying to find the Flag Smashers again, and they actually, Zemo's pretty clever here, and he lures kids with candy. Works, right?
So creepy, but so effective.
and so they it's the Turkish delights, Alan says, yeah.
Downfall just like reminds me of Chronicles of Narnia. That's how, like, the White Witch lures in the kids. Turkish delight. I don't know what that is. I don't know why kids, like, freak out about it. But apparently it's effective kid luring weapons.
We should get some.
Try it. Just throw some out in the street and see if a bunch of kids come running.
So what do you think of the storyline here? So Sam is the one that is empathizing with the Flag Smashers. He's trying to go the alternate route here of let's talk about this a little bit. And unexpectedly that gets broken up. My question, I guess, is, I mean, I think this makes sense. I'm glad that there is, because sometimes, even maybe sometimes, especially in superhero things, it's a little like too excuse to fight and
Mhm.
then you fight and then talk afterwards,
Yes.
oh, we shouldn't have been fighting, I guess.
Right.
Um, Anime does it all the time, whatever. So I get the talking bit.
Mhm.
I don't know that I am convinced that this is their leader. Like, why is
Oh,
she
yeah.
the one? I mean, I guess there's only a handful that have the serum,
Mhm.
so that limits things to begin with.
Sure.
Um, but do you buy her that she's the leader and that this is like a growing worldwide um,
Sure.
group? And I don't know. I guess the thing I was most interested with this episode was getting to see a little bit of how they had set up what had happened during the snap and everyone was
Mhm.
gone, and then after the snap,
Yeah.
because we were missing that context before, and we have a little bit of it now.
Yeah. Um, so to talk about the first part, I do have a hard time seeing Carly as the leader of this group. I think that she became the leader when she decided to take the serum, and then, people just sort of like naturally felt like, "Oh, she's got a plan," you know, like defaulted to, letting her be in charge, and then that, just sort of like builds and builds through the episodes where, she just sort of like keeps assuming that, yeah, since you followed me once, you're going to keep following me again. And she gets reinforced by that sense of like people are following her because they assume she has a plan. um but it's hard to buy her as the leader, and I don't know if it's like maybe her acting or just the fact that like we haven't seen her organize many things. We did get a little bit of,
Exactly.
we've got a little taste of that in these last few episodes, but she hasn't really seemed, um we haven't gotten any like more traditional shots of her like ordering people around or doing something organizational, or you know giving her that sense of authority, power, leadership. So it's hard to have bought her as the leader of this group that's supposedly everywhere when she doesn't feel like she's got the skills to coordinate that. um
Yeah, I mean, she seems like we get the exposure to her that she is like with a small band of people, kind of,
right. Right.
but then you say we've been led to believe that this is a worldwide movement. They're everywhere, things
Mhm.
get sent out on cell phones. They all like act in like unison, we've seen. And we just like you'd think there'd be different factions and different heads of those factions. We just haven't
Right.
seen that coordination, because then when we get to see the inner workings, it's like, yeah, it's some people that kind of disagree with how things are going, and we're going to individually, make this happen. And, there's four of us, so, or whatever.
Right.
So,
Yeah, yeah, it's tough because you don't want to get too broad, and you don't want to go away from your main characters and the main point of your show, but the flag smashers have felt really small as an antagonist in this series, and we're meant to keep believing that they're quite large. Like you said, they're worldwide. They have these huge like organized um events that like they like we get a small taste of all these people in that park get up and walk, and or early on we had that bank robbery where all those
yep.
people suddenly coordinated to put on masks like a flash mob,
Yep.
almost like a terrorist flash mob. um and yeah, it's hard to imagine Carly, as we've been introduced to her, organizing things like that. And of course, she could delegate and, have people to do that for her. But ultimately, it's supposed to be her making these decisions. And she's just felt really small time, not very
Mm.
big.
Yep. Yep.
So, but she does, I mean, I think in these two episodes, she certainly grows more into what feels like a threat, in terms of stepping up her game and doing that classic villain threaten our hero's family kind of
Sure.
thing. um and then also obviously she takes a bigger step in actually directly murdering someone. She kills Battlestar, um can't remember his real name right now. I feel terrible about that, but uh
You feel terrible not remembering the
ah
fictional guy's
I
real
know,
name?
I
That's right.
know. He's coming after me.
Yeah.
um but yeah, so we see her take like bigger steps towards becoming like a traditional villain in these two episodes. But yeah, it's still hard to buy her sometimes. And I think that thank you, Alan Lamar Hoskins. I think that conversation with Sam that she had at Mama Danya's funeral was one of the weaker points of her, of showcasing her as the Flag Smashers leader.
Because she's not seeming confident necessarily
Yeah.
in her,
Hmm.
like, you haven't thought this part out, you don't know. I mean, I don't know. I'd have to rewatch that again, I guess, to like address specifically the conversation in
Yeah.
detail. But what do you think of, and do you like what we got? So if you imagine the world where all of a sudden, what
Hmm.
is it, half of the population disappears,
Right.
and then the idea that they present to us seems to be that, well, things had to readjust. People moved different places.
Hmm.
They kind of set up new homes or whatever. And the idea is that this one great catastrophe unified the world in a way that they had not been used to before. And
Sure.
so we get now people that are worldwide on a greater effort working together to make things still function, you
Yeah.
know businesses, agricultural, factories, like jobs, doctors, things, the people that have just disappeared, and those roles are now feeling a shortage. uh
Hmm.
you know Things are changing. I'm sure, like, prices skyrocketed for stuff, like all kinds of chaos. They
Yeah.
don't address that specifically, but basically they're saying we got a new life in a unified manner. We got to see a unified planet
Hmm.
tackling a mission.
Hmm.
And then everybody came back, and then it was, well, kind of back to normal. Like, you get pushed out of your new place that you had set yourself up in. You
Right.
now have, like, like, order goes back to the way it was previously. All the wrongs have been, the error has been corrected, so to
Right.
speak, or whatever. And so that causes chaos, and so that's what makes the Flag Smashers and their cause. We got to see the world more unified,
Hmm.
and we got displaced, and now we don't feel like we have a place, and we want to go back. So
Hmm.
do you buy this? Am I describing this world scenario correctly? And do you buy that this is a reasonable path that things could have gone down? And do you think that they gave us enough detail and context?
So I think this setup is logical. I think it's definitely something that could happen. Um, could the Flag Smashers grow this large? I'm not quite sure about that. I definitely see a group like this existing, though, in this theoretical setup that we've got. Um, and I see them. I understand where this is coming from, where it's coming out of, like you said, in the sense of we got this world unification. It was like a really great time. Everybody was working together. We sort of ignored traditional borders and barriers of countries, of maybe ethnic groups, things like that, in favor of becoming unified and working as one. And it's sort of like it's a little bit of globalization on steroids. But I see where a group would see the benefits of this and want to keep that rather than returning to the status quo, pre-snap, pre-blip, of feeling that separation, that isolation, returning perhaps of discriminations based on, like I said, borders and barriers. So I get where this is all coming from. Not sure that it could exist again on this global scale that we've been introduced to. I think that's a bit of a stretch. And again, I think it's partially because I'm not convinced of their leader. and her skills in managing this group and managing to grow it as large as it becomes theoretically in the show. So it is a bit hard to believe sometimes.
Sure. It's hard for me to specifically like critique it one way or another because I feel like we don't have enough for what this looked like and how this went down. I honestly, I don't know that I would trust Marvel to do it, but I would be interested. I would have been probably more interested in a show that specifically dealt with how things happened here, So
Like
you
a show
follow
that looks at the time before and after the blip, during the blip, that kind of
yeah, so a
thing.
show that follows someone that is, there, the blip happens, people are gone, and then we start to
Sure.
see things from their perspective, but then from a
Sure.
world stage perspective on how things shape and change and everybody reacts. And the
Sure.
heroes that are left and the governments that are left and the people that, and, like how that happens.
Mm-hmm.
And then you'd be able to get to a point where of some sort of whatever their system creates a stability of wherever it's
Sure.
come to, and then moving to now everybody comes back,
Sure.
and then the chaos that erupts from that specifically, because usually the stuff like that in Marvel movies is dealt with through I think like a news anchor or some little like headline thing or something that
Mm-hmm.
mentions something that happened,
Yeah.
but we don't get the detail. And I understand that's not what they're normally shooting for. I just
Mm-hmm.
would be interested in that potentially.
Yeah, I agree. It seems like Marvel is really focused on presenting things post blip. Um,
Hmm.
Obviously this is post blip. We got in WandaVision, it was post as well, and we got to see, the chaos immediately following everyone's return, through the eyes of Monica Rambeau, coming back and all of the like sudden reappearance of everybody. But we have no middle, we've got a
Yep.
pre-blip, and then now we're exclusively focusing post, but we've got no journey through.
Yep.
So I agree that would be an interesting story to tell. And I think I was just thinking about, what character might be interesting to follow. And I actually think Black Widow would be very interesting, especially when I think about her in Endgame and how like tired and beaten down and like, you know, totally despondent she was, at the beginning of the movie when they're still, working through figuring out how to return everybody. Um,
Yeah.
she'd be an interesting one to have followed, during the time of the blip, I think.
Hmm. I mean, it's like, um, I, but previously it was always when they talk about the blip, it's in a negative light
Yeah.
because
Hmm.
half the world's population, the universe's population is no longer exists, it died or whatever.
Right.
So obviously sad, people have lost their loved ones and family friends, overnight in an instant. So it's more difficult to sympathize than with someone that's in a way, well, this is the silver lining. Maybe you didn't
Yeah.
lose someone in the blip or whatever, and now like I understand they're not saying necessarily, well, let's kill half the people again and go back to it. Let's
Right.
go back to it without that. Um, but yeah, it would be, I mean, because it's one of the points in the show that made me think like, I mean, yeah, if the blip happens and then buy some new property that goes for sale after a, but where to go? That's the thing. What happens? That's complicated. Someone
Hmm.
owns an apartment building. That apartment building owner goes away, is blipped out
Right.
of existence. Well, okay, so who inherits that or whatever? There is inevitably going to be things that don't have much for someone to inherit. The will is not clear. There is no will. It goes to the state. The state does what they will with it. They
Hmm.
rent it out to other people or something like that. And then all the people that had occupied that space 5 years ago are like, what now? How would the world handle that?
Right.
Exactly. How would the legal systems in varying places, handle that? And so to me, it's ultimately a little unfair, maybe, of the Flag Smashers. Like, how is the world supposed to handle this?
Right.
And it's obviously going to be different and varied depending on where you are, and case by case in many ways.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting because my logic would say, how can you displace the new person who's in there? Like it's not their fault that like you disappeared and came back. They've, bought a new piece of property or like you said, like rented a new piece of property, whatever. But yeah, that you know, in this fictional world, it seems that the opposite is the case where, kind of reverts back and sorry that, you bought this or rented this or whatever, but we're gonna have to kick you out now because this person was here first.
Yep.
Um, so yeah, so it's I mean, it feels like either way you go, you lose.
Yeah, you're gonna make a lot of people unhappy one way or the other, for
Right.
sure.
It's just, yeah, which way do
You
you
know,
feel like you have a logical argument to convince people that this
now
is the better way or something? I don't know.
I mean, now I guess I don't know. I mean, because it depends on what point you're declared dead. Are you declared deceased? Or what was the
Right.
declaration? We don't know what's happened, so they could be back, or no, they're gone and dead. So
Right.
therefore, your property is forfeit.
Right. Like, yeah, I mean, do you consider this person like dead or not?
Hmm.
You know, like,
Yep.
I'm sure, in this point in time, marriages and things like that get really tricky because, like, are you a widow and have you remarried? Or, like, and now your spouse is back and who's to say? I mean, were they legally dead? So you are, free of that marriage, or are they now alive again and you're not?
And it makes it more complicated. I mean, again, this is extra complicated because it's fantasy and doesn't happen.
Right.
But so there's things that when occur. But also to complicate it is when the people come back, it doesn't feel like it's been 5 years.
Mhm.
They just left and now they're back. What's happened? So of course you'd be irate when something that was yours is gone or something has
Right.
changed or whatever. It's going to be, you would just be beyond belief. What are you talking about? Like it would not compute. So
Yes.
yeah. But anyways, that would be a lot of drama there that could be shown. Maybe there's a book of
Mhm.
it. Maybe there's making a novelization. I don't know. It could be done well or not, but
Yeah. Yeah, I think it'd be an interesting concept to take a look at the time period of the blip.
mhm.
Because like we said, I mean, we're getting a lot of before and after looks and no, time of. So it'd
Yep.
be interesting if Marvel decides to tackle that. Do it, Marvel.
Uh,
Do it.
so, did you begin at all because I did, to sympathize with the new Captain America in this episode?
I did for a time. And then of course the end of the episode came around and the next episode followed and I sort of like retracted some of my sympathy. But yes, I did, and not in this first episode 4. Um I had a lot of problems with him in this episode, kind of coming in hot, deciding that he's the person who knows best. He cut Sam off like way before, the allotted time he says he's going to give him. Basically picks this fight that ends up with his buddy being killed, so this episode I really didn't, but yes, in the first glimpses of episode 5 I did. And I noticed that you had a note about, this is why it's difficult for a normal person, like just a regular average Joe, to be Captain America. And I agree
Yeah.
with that statement. I've sort of agreed with that since the first announcement of John Walker as Captain America, that you're throwing him in the deep end with
Yep.
people with literal superpowers,
Yep.
super soldier serum, and then also just like enhanced power, like superpowers. you know you're basically setting them up to fail and to feel less than and to create this desperation that I think drives him, um like I was talking about earlier, when he gets his ass handed to him by the Dora Milaje, I mean, of course he thinks like I have to do something to be on these people's level, and that drives him to take one of the vials of the serum.
Yep.
I hated every moment of that. I just like was so mad. I was just yelling at the screen, just like, oh, I hate that he has it. I hate that there was one and he gets it, and now he's gonna be a player because he's got the super soldier serum. But I understand where that desire came from, certainly,
Hmm.
and can sympathize with not wanting to be um like this weak symbol and not effective of any, real change.
Yep. Because we obviously have non-superpowered people that play like Black Widow or whatever, but the expectation is different. When
Yeah.
you're
Hmm.
given this mantle, to be this thing, then yeah, it's a completely different expectation and set of
Right.
standards that you're supposed to live up to.
Right.
And I mean,
And Zemo talks about it in the last episode that, you know, Steve Rogers got put up on too much of a pedestal, and people, made him into this like, all important symbol, and he didn't even seem like a human being to some people. And they forgot that he was like a human being with flaws and, flawed decision making, because he just became this like monolith of greatness and purity and American ideals and, incorruptible. And that's a huge shadow to cast on anybody taking up that
yep,
mantle, let alone, like we're talking about a regular Joe.
yep. Well, and that's why, like, I mean, the complication always in superhero things is that, and I think that Captain America's Civil War probably handled this best.
Hmm.
Or, a Civil War, and maybe, yeah, that one for sure. Where it would just like, if superheroes existed in our world today, of course they couldn't be above the law,
Hmm.
but then they're not really superheroes. Like the superheroes that
Right.
we see, Spider-Man goes and swings and does whatever he wants and saves the day. And
Right.
then, sometimes, then society likes him, and in the lighthearted way, it's like, oh, he's friends with the cops, all this stuff. But that wouldn't be reality. So like
Right.
as soon as you start taking it to, reality, you start getting, I don't know, things start getting confusing here, because like,
Hmm.
yeah, Captain America in this situation is like just taking orders. He's just
Hmm.
doing like a job generally or whatever kind of thing.
Right.
Well, that's more what it would be like, I guess. But then you'd also, if this was the world to be, like you'd have some jealousy of people for sure, besides superpowers, of those that seem to just do what they want,
Hmm.
regardless of the law. So
Right.
anyways, I guess I'm getting off topic. You were talking about Zemo, and you're talking about him,
Hmm.
like with these ideals of it automatically, if you're superhuman, you really it's automatically you become a superhuman that's aligned with like a supremacist ideology in a way, like, or it's
Yeah.
creating that. So like, what are your comments on that kind of breakdown? You kind of talked about it just a second ago, but what
Hmm.
do you think we got here?
Yeah. I think Zemo is to me one of the most interesting characters in this show. I really love, his addition and what he brings in terms of being a foil for the other characters and challenging their ideals and beliefs. Um, like I talked about, I think he's kind of the one who's bringing a lot of philosophical moments into this show.
Sure.
Talking last episode about Steve Rogers and, the dangers of, only viewing him as Captain America as like this incorruptible symbol. And he sort of like takes it to the extreme by comparing comparing him to Hitler in a sense of, like people believe so much in their ideas and things and forget that they're human, that they imbue them with all kinds of power that can go dangerously wrong. And America's just lucky that Steve Rogers was an incorruptible kind of guy, and that he didn't take it to, he didn't abuse his power and take it to a very dangerous level, because he could have.
Mm.
People really looked up to him and held him as this symbol. And he could have abused that and sort of led America down a dark path, and luckily he didn't. Um, but then, he talks in this episode about, if you want to become superhuman, you're automatically ascribing to supremacist ideals. And I get that a little bit, um, in the sense of, you're thinking, you're in essence making yourself better than the regular human, you know.
Hmm.
So there is a sense of like you would be above others and you're setting yourself to be like, I guess, supreme over others. But and he says this with such like absolutism, like Carly wants to make super soldiers, so now she's a supremacist. And
Hmm.
I'm not really sure that um Zemo can really draw these like large conclusions that he does about the essence of humanity from, just looking at the example of Steve Rogers or looking at the example of Carly Morgenthau. I think so. I had a note here that it reminds me of Schopenhauer's philosophy of the will, which, to get super nerdy, I wrote a paper on in grad school where Schopenhauer has this idea of the fixed will. And it's these innate characteristics that you're born with. And they're independent of any learning that you do and any experiences you have as a human. They're just like innate within you. Um, and they're unalterable. You can't do anything about them. You're going to make decisions and you're going to play your role on this earth based on the characteristics that you have. So if you're a coward, if you're brave, if you're, you know, weak, if you're intelligent, these things are fixed and they're going to shape your destiny and your fate, and you can't do anything about them. And he points to Shakespeare as an example of this. Specifically, he points to this very specific side character of the Earl of Northumberland, who throughout a series of Shakespeare's history plays, Richard II, Henry, some of the Henrys, keeps setting up kings and then betraying them for a new king. And so Schopenhauer says, well, that's his, fixed, unalterable characteristic is betrayal. He can't help himself. So he uses like this one very specific character in the entire world of Shakespeare to like make this larger philosophical point. So what I wrote in my paper is you can't really do that. You can't look at one character out of the entire pantheon of Shakespeare characters and say, this guy shows exactly what I want him to show, so therefore this is a universal truth. And I used several of Shakespeare's other characters, like Prospero from The Tempest, to make the point that Shakespeare does write characters who make different choices, who make choices that would initially go against what you think of as their defining characteristic. So that's what
So
I think Zemo is doing here. He's taking very specific examples of people who act a very certain way and then saying this applies universally.
So was he pointing to Shakespeare in the sense that he was commenting on Shakespeare or commenting on the character? Isn't that Shakespeare can only write because this is him,
Mm-hmm.
this kind of character? Or was it like more of a, well, see, this character acts this way because that's what their design is?
Yeah, it's more of the second. This character
Okay.
acts that way because this is what their design is. And of course, like Schopenhauer calls Shakespeare like a genius of, and a master of the character and showing like the true nature of human characteristic. But I think it's because he thinks Shakespeare falls very in line with his own ideology, and therefore it's like, oh, his ideals like illuminate mine. Like I am the philosophy and Shakespeare is the example of my philosophy. Therefore, his work is equally as genius as mine.
Sure. Yeah, it seems interesting to, I mean, in my mind, like if I write a character for D&D and
Hmm.
they're the villain, that does not make that character inherently true to life in any way.
Hmm.
Like, I mean, so I couldn't argue a philosophical point that just describes his character or uses his character to describe a greater point about
Mm,
humanity, because I could just make a character that makes no sense.
right.
The argument has to come first, I would think, that the character that's written is in some way inherently representative of true life and why that is. Because otherwise, it's just that Shakespeare's genius, and therefore he can write a character that is very you
Right.
know understandable, plausible.
Yeah, I had like a quote about the way that Shakespeare presents the characters, um and like Schopenhauer's comment on it. That might be getting like too in the weeds, but I don't know.
So how do people how do people do you feel that his philosophy in any circles hold up to this day?
Schopenhauer's?
Yes.
I do. I mean, I think that I think that there's probably a grain of truth in most, philosophical theories. Um, I think that there are certain characteristics that people tend to have that can be enhanced by their lived experiences, but are also things that we're born with, and we continually make choices that sort of align with some of the characteristics that we innately possess. But for Schopenhauer, he just takes it a little bit too absolutely, in the sense of he believes that this can never be overcome and you can never make different
Mhm.
choices, whereas I'm a believer that you can. And like I said, I use some of Shakespeare's own characters to prove that, other people believe that you can. Even if this is a fictional character, it's still Shakespeare writing this character in a way that they overcome, um this sort of like defining characteristic that they have and make different choices. So therefore, Shakespeare must believe it's possible, even if he's not basing this person on
Right.
a real life character or something like that.
Okay. So to me, I'm glad you described the way you did, because when you wrote the comment, I looked it up a little bit, and
Oh,
obviously
sure.
it's just like kind of larger, more known quotes and stuff. And
Hmm.
it's like the way what I got out of it was a precursor to um, describing both some combination of instinct
Hmm.
and DNA before anyone understands DNA
Yeah.
and inheritance. And so it's kind of those things that you would notice in people that are seem unalterable, things that literally, well, his father did that and his father's father did
Yes.
that, and
Hmm.
like the things that are cyclical that way, or passed down.
Right.
And I can see this being like that early note of that, of
Yeah.
human nature, and how that seems immovable.
Yeah.
um
It's
in
definitely a
ways.
facet of like nature versus nurture. It's obviously Schopenhauer
Mhm.
would be on the side of nature. Like you said, it's kind of this. He views it as intergenerational. Things, characteristics that are certainly passed down through families. Again, this isn't the only example he uses, but it's the one I'm most familiar with. The Earl of Northumberland's family, their um, defining characteristic is betrayal, because the current Earl of Northumberland in Richard II, betrays his king, but then his father and his father before him have also committed their own betrayals against the crown. So it's like this thing that keeps getting passed on, and it's fixed and unalterable, and you can't do anything about it.
Sure. I think so. I had a pretty lengthy conversation recently with a friend about free will, and it's something that we kind
Yeah.
of go back and forth on a little. It's the thing that I always harp on about humans, that like lends itself towards the idea of a free will, because
Mm-hmm.
to me this would suggest a lack of free will, um,
Mm-hmm.
is that we are self-aware. And I always harp on this when we talk about like the difference between humans and animals, or like it's part of this conversation led to, why are humans more inherently valuable than any other life? And it's kind of,
Mm-hmm.
it starts going down that path, and it
Sure.
comes to like, if you are a rabbit and you do not understand that you were born and that you will die and that you presently exist, you have no your free will is incredibly limited if it is there, because you you can't change. So going to Schopenhauer's, you can't change other than the reaction of physical stimuli.
Right.
So something jumps at you and your body takes over and says run. That's
Mm-hmm.
instinct. That's humans have that as well, and that
Right.
would be a key factor in this kind of philosophy. But we are aware that something might jump in front of us,
Mm-hmm.
and can even prepare for that kind of thing or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
We can be aware, like, um, I often talk about with reproduction. Animals rape each other all the time. That's what happens. Well, humans don't have to, because humans are aware that of other people's feelings and can understand that. They can understand right and wrong, and then can choose to
And
not.
consent.
Yes, exactly. So it's like we have an awareness that, I think breaks us free of a mold that our DNA creates, and our
Mm-hmm.
instincts create specifically.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Even if ultimately some of those things overtake, win out, um, we still have a greater choice because we can be aware of it.
Yeah, we have more opportunity to
Yeah.
change. Um, not like you said, not necessarily that we do or don't all the time, but we certainly have an awareness that there can be a choice before us to
Yep.
overcome, those like what Shakespeare, or excuse me, Schopenhauer would say is inalterable. We in fact can alter.
Yep. And just added knowledge, even like, um with if you talk genetics, of course, I don't know if I'm getting too off here or whatever, then it's something like diabetes. Beforehand, you would not, you have no idea or whatever, and you get diabetes, and then your kids get diabetes, and then your kids get diabetes, and like that's what happens, and that's the
Mhm.
condition you have. But just having to understand that you may be genetically predisposed to having diabetes can then change actions that you would have not pre this knowledge,
Mhm.
and now potentially not get diabetes. You
Right.
may still, but you may not, and you're setting forth actions to try, and it can be successful, which to me would
Right.
directly fly in the face of Schopenhauer's will kind of thing, off of
Ye-
my
yeah.
interpretation.
Yeah, I mean, there's an element to Schopenhauer where he does try to clarify that it's not just like any action. It has to be like a
Okay.
defining action. Like you can't just say like, oh, I chose eggs for breakfast today. That's not indicative of anything, about your character or about your what, he calls like your predetermined will. It has to be something
Okay.
like, I'm faced with the choice between, you know, um, betraying a friend and, in doing so getting a promotion. Like, am I more self-interested, or am I like more invested in my relationships with my friend? And
Right.
Schopenhauer would say, you don't have a choice. Like, whatever choice you make, that's going to be your like defining characteristic that's already built into you, that's unalterable, and you're going to make this choice. We're going to see that it's inalterable because you're going to make this choice again and again and again, maybe in a different context, maybe with a different person, but you're going to keep doing this because that's what's in your nature.
So that would be against the idea that, if you're kleptomaniac, then you can just therapy.
Can
Don't
just
do it.
stop it. Yeah.
Just don't try because
Yeah.
you're done.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So
I
that's
mean,
that's
I would
that's
argue maybe
his
the urge
philosophy
would
anyway.
always. Okay. Okay.
I mean, like I said, I argued the opposite.
Yeah.
Um,
Right.
theoretically using like his own example against him, but it's still something like I believed. It wasn't just like a devil's advocate, like, well, let me show you, another thing that Shakespeare did. So
Yeah.
I mean, to kind of bring it back to like this show, I feel like Zemo has very small sample sizes that he's just like cherry picking very convenient examples to say like, these like to extrapolate to use in these like larger universal truths that are supposed to like make Bucky and Sam kind of stop and think about what they're doing and who they are. And I find it a little grandiose, I think, for the show. Like it's interesting to think about, and I think this
Hmm.
conversation is like interesting to think about, but I think it's a little large, um for what the show's
Yeah.
trying to make a point of.
I think that, like, thinking about it for a short time, I
Mhm.
feel like potentially I agree with the idea that wanting to become superhuman is aligned with supremacist ideals,
Mhm.
but the difference is having superpowers does not make you a supremacist. Maybe
Right.
in actuality and like in physicality or something like that. Um, but the difference is motivation. The difference is choice.
Yeah.
So if you're choosing to become a superhuman versus you are born a superhuman, you're born a mutant or whatever, you're born Thor, like those are completely different things
I
because
agree.
one you are and two you're aspiring.
Well, yeah. I mean, you bring up an excellent counterpoint. Obviously, like if you're born with this, like it's not like a supremacist ideal because you never thought consciously about like becoming better than. You just
Mm,
were born in a certain sense, better at something or enhanced or, however you
yep.
want to describe it. So there's no, like you said, there's no motivation, there's no aspiration. But then also, I mean, if this show is going to be so focused on Steve Rogers, I think we have to bring him up as an example because his motivation, at least the way we see it in the first Captain America movie, isn't to become better than, it's literally to, I think, become as good as and to be
Right.
in service of, because he's fundamentally weaker than, your average guy at the beginning of that movie, and
Yep.
he isn't really thinking like this super soldier serum is going to make me better. It's just going to make me capable. It's going to make me useful. It's going to make me of service. So
Yeah.
even there, he's not really thinking like, boy, I need to become better than everybody else. It's, boy, I just want to be, you know, like everybody else, and I just want to help and I just want to do my part.
Yep. But in a
So,
way, I mean, at a really basic level, like I want this, therefore, so I may do my will upon the world. Like
mhm.
right now, I cannot do this. And
Yeah.
so I wish to be able to, I mean, that doesn't inherently, it, I just think it changes with the context. You know,
Yeah,
we're
for
kind of
sure.
getting there. It just changes with the context. And that's not to say like that anyone in this situation, so line up a dozen people and they
Mhm.
all are presented with a super soldier serum. And it's like, you can take this or not. Like, um, I think that we'd have to go through a lot of examples, I suppose, but I think that the motivation of each individual determines this. And it doesn't have to be like the motivation of like, well, I want to rule everyone. Like that doesn't have to
Right.
be that to be late to fall into the bracket of supremacist ideology.
Sure.
It could just literally be, I want a one up, a hand up on my frisbee golf,
Yeah.
you know, or it could be, I want a better chance at in the dating scene or whatever. Like it can be something minor too.
Mhm.
It still lends itself to that as well. But then if you start thinking about that from a principled stance, does that mean that if you want to have a better chance of being better at a sport, that working out and lifting a lot of weights is in line with supremacist ideology? Or is it
Sure.
because it's a quick grab that it's different? Like you're
Yeah.
still seeking power to do something.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a really interesting concept. And we sort of end up exploring that a little bit because by the end of episode 5, Sam is putting in the work, and working out and doing all of these things to make himself, you know, what we consider better than the average human, at least in physical capability and endurance. Obviously, fighting techniques, handling the shield. He's trying to give himself a leg up.
Hmm.
And is that Sam being a supremacist then? Like we're taking it kind of to like a far level, but yeah,
Hmm.
that's a really interesting thing to think about. Like, is it supremacist only because it's like a quick shortcut? Like the super soldier serum is just going to make you automatically better and you haven't worked for it. You haven't earned it. Is that
Well,
the difference? Is the methodology? It kind of goes back to to sorry to prolong our philosophical conversation, but I mean it goes back to Machiavelli, which has been sprinkled throughout this series. Bucky uses like the Machiavelli book to break Zemo out of prison, and of course his most famous ideology is the ends justify the means. So
mhm,
are we saying then no, that's not the case. It's the means that are important here.
mhm,
Like Carly skips all the hard work and just injects herself with a super soldier serum. Is Sam's way better because he does the work and he feels that, and we as the viewers feel that he's earned the right to be better than the average person.
right. Yep. Yeah, I mean, I definitely think that motivation matters when, again, when you're talking about bringing something so extreme that like automatic labeling as like a supremacist ideology. I mean, like we are going extreme with like, okay, you're working out, and so therefore maybe, but
Right.
that's the way philosophy works. It has to
Yeah.
scale. Like if it doesn't make sense on the micro level and the macro level, it doesn't work it's not true. It has a scale. So
Yeah.
I think we're finding that it doesn't scale.
Yeah.
So
I agree.
anything else on that episode?
Yeah, I mean, just the ending here, obviously we look at a lot of like different methodologies in this and we get like pretty philosophical throughout the first 3 quarters of this episode, and then that really sets us up for the ending where we have Battlestar being killed by Carly, which sets up new Cap on this crazy new path that he's on where he ends up killing one of the flag smashers in broad daylight in front of a crowd, in front of a crowd with cameras that record the whole thing.
Yep.
So yeah, so that was a pretty shocking ending that I did not see coming.
Yeah.
um
Yep.
so yeah, a way to
Partner, yep. Kills the guy that's defeated.
yeah, way to set up a crazy cliffhanger at the end of this episode.
Yep. Well, I think in episode 5, we get a cool fight at the beginning. I still on and off. I think they're doing
Yes.
a decent job with making me anyways have sympathy for Captain America, and it's back and forth. It
Yeah.
wavers. So I'm liking that enough. He's feeling the weight of what he did, but then it's one of those things like when you're confronted, then you kind of snap to revert to your like self-defense
Yeah.
mechanisms. And so we get a cool fight. I don't like that Bucky's arm got like messed up at first because it's like,
Yeah.
dude, you have a vibranium arm. I'm not sure what that would have done anything there,
Mhm.
but yes. So we get a cool fight. I think it's the best
Yes.
fight in the show so far because I've been a little underwhelmed, but I thought this one was cool.
This one was pretty cool. I agree. I noted that as well, and I said I had a little bit of Civil War flashbacks here, like superhero
Mhm.
on superhero action.
Yep. Yep. Um, we're going long, but want to let you get to anything you want to in this episode yet.
Mhm.
Um, I I talked in my notes still about like like wanting more context again with like this world. I
Mhm.
noted like where does the GRC get the authority to raid
Yeah.
places?
Yeah,
You know,
what exactly
um,
is the GRC? 'Cause
yeah, and
we've
then we see later, like it kind of seems like a different version of a UN with broader
yeah.
authority, which isn't that your one world kind of already? Flag Smashers?
Right, right.
You
I
have like
mean, yeah, they're sort of saying like I think they're insinuating that that's nefarious because it's a corporation rather than like of the people. But it's hard, yeah, it's hard not to see that, they're acting in a like you said, in a UN capacity. They're just not acting the way that the flag smashers want them to. So therefore bad.
yep, right.
But
So,
yeah, no, they definitely need to do a better job of explaining what exactly is the GRC and what are their limits and powers, and yeah, what are they allowed to do and where do they have
yep.
jurisdiction even?
Yep. And see, to me in this one, it started to feel more like there's less of the gripe with the Flag Smashers is less of a principled one
Mhm.
of like, let's go back to no borders kind of thing, one world, one people, and more of a like, I
Mm,
feel displaced,
sure.
more of like, I don't have a place to belong. And I'm like, I forget how they refer to themselves, but like, I was asking, so don't countries don't take refugees anymore? Like
Mhm.
you're not welcome anywhere. Like, how is this working exactly? Or is it like a resentment for not having the thing you had before?
Yeah.
Like, I'm not sure I still understand the motivation and that the group is willing to kill
Mhm.
because they feel like they don't belong, I guess. Whereas
Yeah.
it would make more sense to me on like a more like hardline ideological thing, one world,
Mhm.
one people,
Mhm.
versus I feel left out.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's an I feel left out a little bit on a larger scale because they're insinuating, I think, that countries aren't taking people back and aren't taking refugees or are trying to send people back to countries that they're saying, no, I've left and I've established myself here, but now this country is kicking me out. So it's sort of like a dreamers situation, to sort of put it in like modern day political context, even though I don't want to go like political, but I think it's just like
Mhm.
an example to say
Sure.
that, I came to this country, I'm established here now. You can't just like kick me out and send me back to another country because the place that I've established myself, now happens to belong to somebody else.
Sure.
So I mean, I know they're being dumped in these like camps. Um, and they're saying like, this isn't like an adequate solution to figuring out what, I'm supposed to be doing, or where I'm supposed to go. Like I have an idea of where I'm supposed to go. You can't just like put me in a camp and tell me to wait here forever.
Sure.
But
Yeah.
but that's a lot of like inference that I made
Yes.
from a lot of pieces of, fragmented clips in this show, and I think that they needed to do a better job of, really exploring that.
Mhm. Yeah, it's a issue the show has had in my mind of like, do you want to be fun superhero thing or do you want to be serious
Yeah.
commentary thing or something? Like it's kind of
Mhm.
trying to do both, uh,
Mhm.
struggling a little at both in my book. But
Yeah, yeah, I think there are certain points that the show's done really well, and then there are like this is, I think, one of its weaker points. I think explaining the GRC and um, really presenting Carly Morgenthau as like a villain. I
mhm,
think the show has struggled pretty greatly with that.
yep. Another weaker point that I think just for like it was fine, it was done fine in here or whatever, but the whole still from the beginning not getting the bank loan thing and how
Oh
that
yeah.
ripple affected into like what they're doing with the family business, it kind of got off on a bad foot.
Yeah.
Though I did enjoy the kind of um montage, the getting to like being more
The
buddy kind
working
of
together
thing,
montage.
fixing on the
Yeah.
ship. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was I commented at some point, it's like I'm happy to finally see the two of them getting along, like
Yes.
that's nice anyways. So
Yes, it was a cute
yes.
like this is our, we've been at each other and we're, the odd couple kind of thing and having our
Yep.
fights and now we're like finally getting our bonding moment and we're getting
Yep.
along and oh, it's so funny like don't hit on my sister. I'm going to hit on your sister like you know, it's very like feel good in this episode which like you said is nice but
Hmm.
also like a little unbelievable that like Sam needs to call an entire town to come help him fix his boat.
Yeah. I mean, the thrust of this episode is clearly that, like you comment earlier, that we see Sam lose his wings, and
Mhm.
so it's like, okay, the time has come now. The new Captain America has been disgraced. Are you are you taking up the shield or not? And so
Right.
that's what we get. We get the path to his decision in this process,
Mhm.
and I think that, like again, we don't like to get political on this show because we want everybody to be happy and have a good time here talking about fun and shit. But I want to say that I don't think that they could win in their if Sam is going to be Captain America and they're going to have this, I don't think there's a show they could really make and have that win for everyone.
Well, I
They're in a
think
tough spot.
yeah, I think again, not to get too far into a political road, I think there's no way that they could make this show and have it be about Sam, a black man, becoming Captain America without talking about race at some point. And this is the episode that it happened.
Hmm.
And I just like you said, there's no way to I think address it so that everybody feels comfortable and everybody, gets the win and everybody, walks away just like, "Oh, it's fine, like he's Captain America and we didn't discuss these like really awkward things." Um, so there was no way to make this show without, I think, rubbing somebody probably the wrong way at some point. But I think they did a pretty decent job of tackling the subject without um I don't know, without dragging it down too much or without allowing Sam to be his own person and make his own choices. They kind of address that in this episode with him going back to Isaiah, hearing his full story. And, Isaiah saying, like, what decent, self respecting Black person would want to be Captain America? And Sam ultimately decides, well, me, I do. I understand your story and I understand um, the way that, racism has affected you in this country. But I still think part of the way that we address that racism is for me to become this symbol, this monolith, this, idea that I am also America, not just like Steve Rogers is
Sure.
Captain America and represents America. I also can represent America as a Black man.
Hmm. I do a bit of a discredit to our audience that I don't like. I have criticisms of the show that I don't exactly bring up because I don't want to get
Mm,
into it, and like I won't because I don't want to like put that on people here or whatever. But I will say to the show's credit, I think that I I appreciate the honesty with the way the characters were written anyways. Like there was no
mhm.
one that I thought um well that's not realistic or I don't believe the way you're motivated or
Yeah.
whatever. So I think that the way that this episode went down, you know, going back to visit, what was his name? Isaiah, was it Isaiah?
Isaiah, yep.
Yeah, going back to visit, like, I think that the character they made for him is a believable character.
Hmm.
And so I think that's the best compliment I can give, is that ultimately I think that things don't feel like out of place
Sure.
for the character presented to us.
Sure, like they're just using them in service of a greater point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's bits earlier in the show that to me feel out of place and unnecessary or whatever, but this episode where it really tackled things that they were going to at least felt honest.
Hmm.
So
Yeah, I would agree.
let's see what else happened here. We got the training montage. Before that, we had like the kind of counseling meeting with Sam and Bucky, and he's like, "Oh, good talk." He kind
Oh,
of
yeah,
Sam
yeah.
sort of gave him some advice or whatever.
Yes.
And I liked that scene. I liked the moments.
Hmm.
I thought it was a little weird how they were casually tossing the shield and reflecting and stuff.
Yeah.
And then
It
when
was like a
Sam's
football.
montage, yeah, but then in Sam's montage, when he's training, he's like having trouble. It's like, you were
Yes.
just doing this fine a second ago. I guess you're just
Yes.
getting worn out or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think the idea was he was supposed to be doing like more complicated things in his training, but
Yeah.
you're right. Like the fact that he like couldn't catch it sometimes was a little like, well,
Hmm.
you just did. I mean, you were tossing, like I said, you were tossing it with Bucky like it's a football or a frisbee and like no
Yep.
big deal. And suddenly you've got problems. But I mean, it's a training montage. They have to show like you making progress or whatever. So sure.
Yep. Um, so that was fun. What is that, Alan?
Oh, he's talking about our Julia Louis-Dreyfus cameo, Valentina Allegra
Oh,
de Fontaine, and her approaching our ex Captain America now, John Walker,
yeah.
letting him know that she knows he took the serum. She knows, he's going to be out for revenge against Carly, and she's interested in obtaining his services for some like shadowy group that she is
Yeah.
representing. Not exactly clear who she's representing right now. I know like her character in the comics has represented a few different groups, including Shield at one point. Not exactly sure that that's what's going on here.
It's probably the GRC.
Oh, that'd be interesting. That'd be
So
interesting.
are we gonna get that shift then? Is it gonna be that, oh, the true villain
Yeah,
is,
in one episode.
yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Like, it's a lot, like if this, because this feels like one of those setups for something else, for something more. And
Yeah.
if we're only gonna, yeah, we get one episode, that's a lot to do. So they could make it simplistic, could be, look, yeah, we need a person to, because we're the GRC, we're knocking down doors, and we need to take care of these flag smashers, and
Right.
I don't know, but he wasn't able to do it before. I guess he killed the one, so I don't know, but
Yeah, but like that was definitely a he needed help to even find them in the first place. Like,
yes, correct.
so
Yep,
we'll
it was
see.
an assist. Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah. So yeah, we'll see. I mean, this reminds me, when we were talking about WandaVision and we were like, how is this gonna wrap up in the last, episode? And they did it. I don't know. I feel even more unsure about this show, but maybe they're gonna, blow away my expectations and wrap these things up in a logical way in the last one. But
Yeah.
feels
Yeah. I don't
feels
know what
hard to see right now.
right. Yeah. I mean, and what will feel satisfying.
Yeah.
They're trying to get us to sympathize with the flag smashers. So, and our lead character clearly has and stuff. So it's not going to be satisfying to just have them all killed and they're done. You
Right.
know, um, if you just like kill ex Captain America here, well, okay, but you didn't deal with the primary threat. um, yeah, how does it end in a satisfying manner?
Right. Well, and how can you take care of John Walker um in a way that you're not turning Sam into, what we saw John Walker become. Like, the
Yeah,
point of him killing the Flag Smasher was like Captain America would never do that, and he's tainted the shield with blood now.
right.
Um, so I mean, how can what are you going to have Sam do potentially to take care of this new slash also former Captain America,
Yeah,
that won't taint the shield in that way?
but that is a like it's always one of those hypocritical things where it's at there's a I think they're called Corridor Crew. They do a YouTube channel and stuff, and they do one scene. They remake the effects in them and stuff. They're like make a thing rated R or whatever, and so they use a Avengers thing, and Captain America is throwing his shield and like just cutting people in half. So it's like the reality of what would actually happen with that kind of force.
Yeah.
So like the thing is and that's why it's difficult, always difficult to do these things. Like you can't, it's hard to have it both ways. Fun action adventure superhero fluff, where clearly if this was real, you'd be manslaughter, you'd be just killing people
Oh,
left
right.
and right.
Yeah.
They'd be all dead or vegetables, but you ignore that. They're fine. It's okay. Don't worry about it. It's fake.
Right.
And then, or you go the other way, and then, and then what
It's
would
way
have
too
been happening
real.
this whole time? Yeah. Like it comes off as a little like, it doesn't quite ring, honest,
Yes.
in that. But yeah, it's something difficult to deal with all the time. Corridor digital. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I guess what I'm most excited for going into the final episode is just seeing what Sam's Wakandan, presumably, suit is like. Because that's
Yes.
the thing that really, I mean, you look at Black Panther. Black Panther isn't super powered, but he has an amazing suit
Right.
that can basically, absorb all kinds of damage and blows and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, he's a
So
different version of Iron Man. I mean,
yeah. Hmm.
Tony Stark
Yep.
isn't anybody physically different, but he's got a genius intellect and has built himself a suit that can, make him as powerful. So,
Alan says he has powers from the flower. I don't remember that, but I
oh,
will actually
right,
look
right, right.
for it.
He does. Because yeah, he eats like the other flower in terms of
That's why you
like,
get chosen or whatever, right? And then you go in that room and
yeah, the heart-shaped herb. That's right. Because he like eats the
drug
thing.
addicts,
Yeah, he eats the thing
supremacist
that
ideology.
he eats the thing that neutralizes it when he gets challenged so that he's like a
Ah,
regular
yeah.
person to prove that he's chosen to
Hmm.
to be the king of Wakanda. Yeah. I do remember that now. Thank you, Alan.
Interesting.
But
Wonder if
yeah,
that.
I mean part of like being the Black Panther though is the suit as
Yes.
well.
Yeah. Yep. Adding resilience. So yeah, I think
Right.
that's the thing. He's lost his wings, gained a shield, but something more, and you get this Wakandan design suit. That could
Yes.
be cool. I want to see what that looks like.
Yeah.
So
I'm interested as well. It could be a little game changer for Sam there, in terms of like feeling more like Captain America. And I did love, I think we both kind of noted at the end there, his nephew's running around calling him Uncle Sam.
oh,
Like,
I didn't know
as
it. I liked your comment.
oh,
That's
okay.
good.
I thought it was pretty funny. I mean, it's just like
Yeah.
another, he's America, he's Uncle Sam. And
Yeah.
it was just like very, very apropos that he's now going to become Captain America. So it was pretty funny.
Well, I hope they can bring the fun in this next episode. I know there's
Yes.
like action to be had and stuff, but I hope that they don't try to make me pity anyone too much, and
Hmm.
make it successfully action packed and satisfying in its conclusion. as opposed to like, oh, I understand you now. Isn't this too bad? Yeah, I
Right.
sympathize. Now you're kind of the good guy too, even though you murdered people and blew up a building. And like, you know, I don't want that wishy-washiness. So that's my
Yeah. Yeah, I think it would be great if they can manage to deal with both Carly and John Walker in satisfying manners. Much the way that, the show, and I know he's a less consequential character at this point, but I mean, the show dealing with Zemo and what is his fate. It's like to
right.
go off with the Wakandans. Like it just felt like, yep, that's very satisfying because that's what they wanted.
Yep.
And like he's the one who wronged them. And he was like, yep, I totally get it. Like this is the deal, and I know what I did, and I forgive you. So and then
Yeah.
that, kind of paved the way, that cleared one of our, anti-heroes off the board so that we could deal with the others. And it kind of cleared the way for, I think, Bucky and Sam to have their like, more lighthearted moments together. So hopefully we can do something like that in the last episode here too.
Yeah. Yeah. All right.
All righty.
That everything you feel like you wanted to say about these episodes?
I think so. Got pretty deep, so I'm not sure where else I would go.
We never know, how much something is gonna spark conversation. So like we could have cut out all the news, but whatever, it's that's all right. You just like your favorite television show, you can watch our episodes or listen to them in pieces.
Yes.
It's perfectly fine. So let's see. All right. Well, that was Falcon and Winter Soldier episodes 4 and 5. Early in the episode, we had lots of news. So you should follow us here on Twitch and YouTube and Twitter and Facebook and on your favorite podcast directory. Also, like and share. If you find any value in our conversation about any of this stuff, let other people might too, that's how I know that this podcast can work, because we both like this stuff. Therefore, by default, other people like this stuff too.
That's right.
So
we represent the larger people.
Otherwise, our theme song comes to you from Killing the Flower. You should check them out on Instagram, YouTube, and Spotify. We thank them very much. And I often, usually 3 days a week, I guess, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, I play with my brother-in-law, Lucas333. That's Lucas with a K, on Twitch. We're usually streaming Fortnite. Today it was Paladins or Hearthstone or Spellbreak. Like, we would change it up sometimes, go in different streaks. So tune in to check that out. Give him a follow. And I think I've covered the bases.
I believe you have.
All right. I mean, I could just delay and longer. If we haven't had the longest episode yet, I can just filibuster until it is for sure the longest episode.
That's hilarious, because just to end on a funny note, Chris is rewatching The West Wing right now, and we literally just watched a filibuster episode where one of the senators was reading a recipe book, and then he was reading some Charles Dickens. God, I forget what else. He reads like a car manual, I think, at one point. So
nice.
If you ever need any ideas, apparently those are some good long things to hold up the filibuster.
I think a person should read like some sort of like Karma Sutra. So you have to like
just make your audience like wildly uncomfortable.
Yeah. Yep.
So that they're like, oh my God, we need to end this right now. That's brilliant, actually.
Yep. All right. Well, thank you everyone for tuning in, and we'll be back next week.
Sounds good. Finale episode. It should be a good one.
Yep. Talk to you later.
Right. Cheers, everybody.